Practice makes perfect by Neon Zangetsu, Chapter 15, and just a little light. Never stop reaching, John. It's in your darkest moments when you're filled with doubt. Well, that's when you surpass your limits. I know you can. You just need a little motivation. Naruto, and just a little light. How are we feeling today? She didn't answer, of course. She seldom did when she was in one of her moods. Instead, she glared past him with intent, staring at the whitewashed wall as though to blaze a hole through it. In a few more days, she might be able to do just that. She was nearly recovered now, recovered and eager to venture out into the world once more. She couldn't allow such, of course. She knew it, and so did he, which brought them to an impasse. Hospin bit back a sigh as he listened to the steady droning beep 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 of her heart monitor. It served to center him. Patience, must have patience. She'd been through a rather trying ordeal. Those who stare death in the face seldom out unscathed. Seldom out unscathed. She certainly hadn't. Truly, it was a miracle Amber's lived at all, which brought him to this. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Who? She didn't answer, idly running a tan hand along the stump of her left leg. Osbin looked up from his clipboard with a wince. You're feeling restless. Adrift. I understand. Amber glowered at him from her hospital bed. I don't think you do. You're not the one who almost died. Yet she hadn't. The power was still hers, virtually intact at that. Thank the gods for small miracles, and curse them for putting such fear in her. Rest assured, we won't let it happen again. Again, her voice pitched in distress. Someone tried to suck the life out of me. If Crow hadn't been there, but he was. That said, they're a rather interesting young man I'd like you to meet. Someone who might be able to help you with your problem. She huffed in his side. If you were willing to accept the prosthetic, then none of this would be necessary. I'll consider it. That's all I ask, Amber. Pah, he was one to talk. One of his descendants was walking around, and what did he do? Hide away like a coward. If this John Ark truly was his descendant, then he must pluck up his courage and speak to him. And if the boy's semblance had the applications he thought it did, now was no time for cowardice. It must be done. They blitzed him. In the face of such a overwhelming assault, John's first instinct was to make like a turtle and hunker down, stand his ground, hide behind his shield, and weather the storm. Best defense was a strong defense, and all that's good stuff. Why shouldn't he? He had aura and chakra for days. His opponent couldn't possibly get to him with his guard up, right? Then he saw Pyrrha's smile. It was a perfect nice smile, which was precisely the problem. John found that there was no publicity lurking within that grin, no deceit in her eyes. Pyrrha charged headlong at him, determined finally to test his mettle, come hell or high water. One look at her told him his shield wouldn't be enough today, not against someone like her, not when she was in this kind of mood. You did ask for this, remember? He had here on the weekend, away from prying eyes, against odds and fighters of her caliber that would force him to actually try. He pivoted and waved his shield at her. Pyrrha ducked behind her own and deflected. He used that moment to close the distance between them. In its sealed state, Corsair Moors remained just that, an ordinary sword. No need to conjure the chakra lightsaber here. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. Just as well too, if Weiss was all grace with precise little power, and Yang raw power with little finesse, then Pyrrha was a perfect blend of both power and grace. She was also in his face, because she recovered far quicker than he expected. Milo cut a crimson swath at his knees in sword form, forcing him to brave his blade with both hands to parry. The impact produced an almost pleasant ache in his elbows. Taking one hand from the hilt, he pivoted on his right heel and flung it forward, slamming clenched knuckles down at Pyrrha's face. He knew she'd block it. She was too good to be taken in by something like this. Sure enough, Akuo took the hit, though her shield rang like a gong. The impact sent her skidding away from him, aura fizzling, heels biting against the tarmac. Most would have complained at such a cheap move. Not his partner. Impressive. She bounced on her heels, green eyes dancing. Your form is excellent. Who taught you? A little thrill of pride shot through him, only be swallowed by shame. Mom and Dad were probably still worried sick, and here he was goofing off on a weekend. My parents showed me the basics, but this. He spied his shield on the floor and stomped down on its edge, kicking it back into his waiting grasp. Most of it self-taught. Her gaze went half-lidded, and the smile returned with a vengeance. It was John's only warning. When she was on him again, she was flicking in towards his chin in a golden blur. He met it with his grin. Sparks flew between them. She hummed a little when he didn't give ground. They struggled against one another, shield to shield, flesh to flesh, face to face, each striving for the upper hand. The stalemate didn't last long. John didn't let it. He planted his feet. He took one. He took one a single firm step forward, then another now, and here at last, Pyrrha's eyes widened. She must have realized his intentions too. One moment he was striving against him, she was striving. In the next, the tricky redhead ceased all resistance, entirely dropped down to her haunches, and let him stumble forward. He felt blade cut out at his back as he went, delivering a stinging rebuke for trying to force her out of the ring so early in the game. John took it in good grace and kicked out at her legs before she could try again, thereby forcing her to leap into the air. The very moment she did, her sword shifted into a spear to come sweeping in at his head. He caught it by the haft with a laugh and reeled her in. Her smile flashed out again, a brief blinding glimmer of white. Then her headbutt rocked his world. Stars burst before his vision, and John found himself rocking back, warding Crusader Moors before him. He tasted blood in his mouth, and realization dawned. He'd accidentally bit his tongue. It was already healing, but the pain lingered all the same. With it came a certain cold clarity, a bright and shining realization that he'd not felt since he'd come to begin. That hurt. John, Pierre balked. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you that hard. No, no. He flung out a hand towards to ward off her apology. That was good. Let's keep going. Uncertainty danced through her once lively green eyes, allowing him to glimpse the anxiety beneath. If you're certain, he bent his knee and adopted a new stance. Never been more sure. Never been more so. Pyrrha mirrored him. A second passed. Two now. Her left foot shifted a centimeter to the right. It was enough. John burst forward, kicking off the ground to launch himself at her like a heat-seeking missile. She met him halfway with a roar laugh. They collided in a storm of blows. Feint, block, counter, then counter again. Time ceased to have any means as they raged back and forth across the empty ring. No one watched, no one to see. Pyrrha was a blur of gold and on red, poetry in motion, each strike chambering into and another still, never once using the same style for more than 10 seconds. By contrast, he may as well have been a walking rock, making only minimal movements, enduring whatever damage she felt, and dishing it back thrice as hard. He could have used any manner of tricks and traps. He knew he could, but where was the fun in that? He wanted to test himself, lose himself, bury all his thoughts and anxieties in some simple, mindless, gratuitous training. His world flashed white again as he misread a feint. Her blade racked across his chest, sparking his aura. She just hit you. What are you going to do? Hit her harder. His knee snapped up in a moment of mindless anger, and he struck back. Pyrrha folded around it and dropped her weapon with a gasp of pain. Agony read itself across her face as she clenched her wrist, bringing with it a flash of guilt. Shit, she swore without thinking. Pyrrha, I didn't mean to. It's all right. Just knock the wind out of me. In the same instant, a soundless shadow fell over John from on high. His sixth sense shrieked. A thought broke through his battle haste, and he remembered nearly too late. Pyrrha wasn't his only opponent. Really, the fact that they'd waited this long at all was a miracle in and of itself. A lifetime of training saved John from ignoble defeat at the last instant, sending his body twisting to the right. Lyran's knife swept through the space his head had occupied. Not a moment before, he felt a breeze brush the back of his neck when he was moving Rearing back to smash his shield against his teammate's exposed chest, he heard the harsh crackle of metal meeting aura, but didn't pause to check his handiwork. He could hear a torrent of pink grenades already hurtling his way. Nora had chose her opening well. He kicked away as they detonated and ducked back into the smoke, vanishing in the pink haze. 3 against 1, hardly fair odds, exactly the odds he'd asked for. Anyone have eyes on him? That was Ren's voice. Nope, Nora tripped. I'm afraid not. Gotcha. John burst out of the smoke and landed amongst them. He parried Pyrrha and knocked Nora aside and riposted Ren. After that, it dissolved into a mindless blur. 4! Nora hurtled in from the right with a triumphant cry. Too close. He pulled on the trigger in the air and his eyes flashed gold from the merest of moments. Long enough to catch Magnhild in an open palm, Nora balked, and he used the moment to drive a Rasengan into her gut. Aura sparked and she hurtled away with a sharp yelp of surprise, barreling into Ren and swallowing them both over. Bonus. Ampere was in his face before he could capitalize on the opening. She trained all her life to fight people rather than Grim, and it was here in close combat that her skill showed. Abruptly felt something tug against his shield, drawing it out of place. Semblance. He frowned and yanked it back up. His every instinct yelped. Time. He yelped. Time out. I'm sorry, she whooped. I didn't mean to use my semblance. Feel free to use yours, though. Shame flushed through him. I can't. John, it's fine. Pyrrha lowered her blade. Don't hold back on my account. Yeah, what she said. Nora climbed to her feet, hefting her arm like someone who hadn't been hit with a Rasengan. What was that girl made of? No, it isn't that simple. I have to. It's, my semblance, he admitted quickly, trying not to cringe at the line. It isn't something I can use without consciousness. Desperate for a distraction and not at all liking the sudden interest in her eyes, he took a leap of faith. So, want to go into Vale? Pyrrha perked up. That's a little sudden, but if you're asking, yeah, he grinned. We can make it a team thing, scope out the competition. In all fairness, Ren tried to back out. Sure. Nora nabbed him in a Nelson before he could. Pyrrha's lips formed a thin line, and he felt the miasma of displeasure radiate from her. Why? Was it something he'd said? Fool! How am I a fool? Sure, a team thing. That sounds grand. Uh-oh. Credit where it was due. He picked up on that, if not the reason for it. We don't have to if you don't want to. No. I do. I'd just rather go with you. Alone. Ack. Nora coughed harshly. Oh, would you look at that? I seem to have come down with a cough. You too, Red Ren? I feel fine. She struck him in the gut and he folded over with a wheeze. Yes, I seem to have come down with something as well. Pyrrha's gaze flitted to them, back to him. A deep blush crept across her face. Perhaps we should. The training room door flew open before she could answer. John, Ruby burst into the arena in a cloud of crimson petals. Have you seen Blake? John tried not to wince at Ruby's inquiry. His mind closed down. Of course he had. He'd run away from her just the other day. By the log, what had that crazy cat done this time? No, he mumbled instead, cursing himself for his cowardice. I haven't. Why? She squirmed under his gaze. It's just she and Wise had an awful fight and she ran away. Why do I always run when things get tough? John? No, it's nothing. He shook his head, then on a whim craned his neck back. Guys, have you seen her? Pyrrha shook her head, ponytail swinging. I'm afraid not. Ren soundlessly shook his head. Nora shrugged. Sorry. We can do better than that, and you damn well know it. Fix her. Fix this. Fix what? A new voice snapped him back to reality, a heartbeat too late. Hello again, friend Ruby. They jolted apart. Penny. The little reaper flailed her arms, looking positively aghast. Why are you here? The newcomer blinked honestly. You asked me to help your friend, Blake. I didn't mean follow me all the way to Beacon, but I will be attending in a few weeks. It's still not okay. John leaned back. Hello, and you are? Salutations. My name is Penny, and you must be... John, the redhead, took one look at him, rounded on him with a gasp, reached out, and clasped his hand in hers. It is so sensational to finally meet you in person. Those strangely bright green eyes shone now with thinly disguised glee. Your family has told me so much about you, cousin. Sure, great. The weird girl knew his name and... Wait, his heart skipped a beat. Wait, family? Cousin? Indeed, her next words damned him. Your father sent me to retrieve you. Previews. Juniper yanked on his ear. Ow! Naruto winced. All right. Maybe I got carried away. You're sleeping on the couch tonight, mister. Nora made a noise reminiscent of a wedding bells. John felt his face flashing with fire. Even he wasn't that dense. Blake, why, why do you always do this? I don't need your help. You say that, but I'm thinking you do. The blade sparked red. Enough! Cinder, what do we do? Nothing. He'd kill you if he came to a fight. That kid, he's an idiot. No way would he stand a chance. Her eyes flashed. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. The fall maiden was here. She had to be. The power would be hers. The hero types, always so noble. Toshwick had the good grace to grin. Unfortunately for you, I'm not alone. He slammed two fingers into his mouth and whistled. Neo! John heard the sound of shattering glass behind him and whirled. A pair of mismatched eyes filled his vision. Then she was on him. End of chapter 15.